talking about biodiversity and how organisms get classified into groups. So first of all, biodiversity is really important. We can't really emphasize this enough. Lots of different kinds of things is helpful for the environment, having lots of different kinds of things. So when I taught at the zoo, we would give programs to all different grade levels. And the way I explained it to little kids, why it's important to have lots of different kinds of things, I would tell them, most of you probably like pizza. Would you like to eat pizza every single day?
No.
Some of them, of course, would always say yes. But it's not good to eat pizza every meal for every single day forever, because you don't get the nutrition that you need. You don't get the right balance that you need. And it's the same for animals. If you give animals the same food every single day, that's not going to be healthy. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for the environment. Biodiversity is good. If you go to a forest and there are lots of different kinds of trees, lots of different kinds of animals, that means that forest is healthy. More variety, more healthy environment. So there's also something called prokaryotic and eukaryotic. This is a big idea in science. Prokaryotic means that an organism does not have a membrane around their nucleus. In fact, they don't really have a nucleus at all. There is no membrane surrounding their DNA. They still have DNA, they just don't have a membrane nucleus. So their DNA is kind of like in this jelly-like plasm. It's kind of like all bunched up together in this jelly-like fluid. So mostly, pretty much all, prokaryotic organisms are bacteria. So if it's a bacteria, it's prokaryotic. That's basically how it works. Eukaryotic is pretty much everything else, and they do have a membrane around their nucleus. So eukaryotic organisms are organisms whose cells have a membrane-bound nucleus, and it's pretty much every other thing out there besides bacteria. So what would that make us, prokaryotic or eukaryotic?
Eukaryotic.
We are eukaryotic because we are not bacteria. Now, do we have prokaryotic in us?
Yes.
Yes, because our entire digestive tract has prokaryotic inside. Not just that, but there's lots of other bacteria within us besides the good bacteria that's in our stomach. So yes, prokaryotic is all over the place, but we ourselves are made of eukaryotic. No membrane, eukaryotic does have a membrane, prokaryotic does not.
Where's my blanket? Oh, it's in Roman's classroom. I think I left it in there. Oh, that's fine.
Biologists make sense of diversity by classifying organisms into groups. Most now favor a system that assigns organisms to 3 domains: the archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. The eukarya includes the protists, plants, fungi, and animals. Archaea are single-celled prokaryotes. Many live in hot springs, salt lakes, and other habitats as harsh as those that prevailed when life originated. Bacteria are the most well-known, widespread, and diverse group of single-celled prokaryotes. Eukaryotes may be single-celled or multi-celled organisms. In all eukaryotic cells, the DNA is housed in a nucleus. The protists range from microscopic single cells to giant seaweeds. The group includes diverse producers, consumers, and decomposers. Differences among lineages are so great that this one kingdom is now being split into a number of separate groups. The plants are multi-celled photosynthetic producers. They make their own food by using sunlight as an energy source and simple raw materials as building blocks. Fungi may be single-celled or multi-celled. They are mostly decomposers, but some are parasites and pathogens. Animals are multi-celled consumers. All develop through a series of stages and actively move about during at least some part of their life.
Alright, so the two types of bacteria, there's bacteria and then there's another group called Archaeobacteria. Bacteria is the most diverse and well-known. It's single-celled organisms that lack the nucleus. And then Archaeobacteria, they are related to bacteria, but they're a little bit weird. They still don't have that bacteria. They still don't have bacteria. They still don't have that nucleus. But they're a type of bacteria that actually survive in weird places. They are, they're like bacteria that are really in hot places. Like if you go to a hot springs, these are the type of bacteria that you would find there. Or a really salty place. Or a really acidic place. They like extreme places. Those are the type of bacteria you're going to find in archaic groups. The other bacteria, they're just like the regular kind. Has anybody ever had strep before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the regular bacteria. If you get the fuzzy white stuff on your teeth, that's bacteria. Mm-hmm. It's called plaque.
Oh, plaque?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's bacteria. You have to clean your contact lenses because otherwise you get bacteria. You get an infection, pus. Actually, pimples because of bacteria. These are mostly electron scanning microscopes. If we were to look at them under a microscope, they'd be really kind of boring because they're pretty small. They look like little dots or little lines. So really not terribly exciting because bacteria are pretty tiny. So if we look at a classification system, this is how things get classified. Anything close, it looks kind of like a tree. Anything close to what's called the trunk of the tree is more primitive, and anything out toward the tips of the branches are more advanced. So the eukarya, the ones with the membrane around their nucleus, are more advanced, and so that would make regular bacteria more primitive. So these archaea bacteria, the ones that live in the extreme environments, they're a little bit more advanced than the regular bacteria, and they are more closely related to the eukarya. So these are the three domains, and we'll talk a little bit more about domains in a bit. But bacteria domain, archaea, and then eukarya. These are the three main domains as far as classification goes. And as far as classification, the regular bacteria domain is the more primitive. Then we have a little bit more advanced, the archaea, and then the most advanced, the eukarya. Alright, so as far as eukaryotics, there are 4 main groupings that fall within these eukaryotics: protists, fungi, plants, and animals. Now, actually, the systems we're talking about, we're looking at classification as far as, I'm sure you've heard it before, like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. That's basically what we're following. What we were talking about before with archaea and bacteria and eukaryotic, those were called domains. Domains are found above kingdom. So eukaryotes, those are a type of domain, and protists, fungi, plants, and animal, these are actually types of kingdoms. So if you go on to take my zoology class, kingdom Animalia is what the zoology class focuses on. There's also kingdom Plantae, kingdom Fungi, and kingdom Protista. Obviously, zoology doesn't focus on those, although we do talk about kingdom Protista a little bit. But protists are a single cell organism. A lot of the protists live in, like pond water, for instance. And you can get some pond water and look at them, and they're like little swimming things that are found in pond water. Fungus are pretty single cell or multicellular. They are eukaryotic, and they are consumers. They can't photosynthesize. That's why mushrooms and molds are not typically green. They are absorbing the nutrients from typically dead things, and they break down those dead things as decomposers. Plants, we all know what plants are, multicellular, and they are going to photosynthesize most of the time, not all the time. There are some plants that do not photosynthesize to get what they need. And then, of course, animals. Those are pretty easy to understand because we are animals. diatom. If we look at pond water later in one of our labs, we might see some of these like single-celled critters floating around in there. This is an example of protists and fungi, kind of a comparison of the two. So the fungi, again, that's going to have, when this classification system was first developed, then they thought that the fungus were plants, and it wasn't until later when they looked at them much closer that they realized that they weren't actually plants, that they deserved to be in their own group. So they divided them out later. Also interesting, sea kelp, like the really long kelp, those are not plants either. Those are actually put in the protist group. So even though they look like plants, they are not. They are in the group with the protists. So just because something appears to be one way doesn't mean that they're actually belong in that group. Appearances can be deceiving. Plants and animals, those are a little bit easier, especially the animals, although even that can be a little bit confusing. Sponges, for instance, sponges for a long time were considered to be plants, but they are actually a very primitive type of animal. And in my zoology class, that is the first animal group we start with, is actually sponges. So eukarya, again, that is a membrane-bound nucleus. So we start with our eukaryotes, and then eukaryotes can be plant or animal. So plants fall into the eukaryotic group as well. And funguses are in the eukaryotic group, and here are some examples of funguses. And animals can be in the eukaryotic group. Alright, so we're going to watch a little video about it.
I've come to South Australia to see what happened to the evolution of life after snowball Earth. Paleontologist Jim Geeling has taken me to see some of the rarest and most ancient fossils in the world. The remains of the creatures that finally ended the era of the stromatolites.
Where exactly are we going? We're going to a secret location in the Flinders Ranges. This site is so valuable that we have to actually be very careful about who we take in there and who actually finds out about it. We're going to see one of the most fantastic things. It's the place where you can get a look at the very first fossil evidence of complex life on Earth.
The area we're about to visit was once at the bottom of the sea. 600 million years ago, the oceans were the only place where life could be found.
For 1 billion years, all that the Earth had seen, microscopic single-celled creatures, the best they could do was to form these domes of slime, which we call stromatolites.
So then in comes the snowball, global glaciation and wipeout. And how did life get affected by that?
Within a short time after the end of the snowball, we see a revolution in the history of life. We see a sudden increase in size and complexity of the single-celled creatures, and soon after, we find impressions on rocks of the very first large creatures, things you can see with the naked eyes, which we believe are the oldest multi-celled creatures, the Ediacara fossils.
These fossils may represent the most important leap forward in the history of life on our planet, but that doesn't mean they're easy to spot.
This is a very old surface, and if we clean it off and then push this putty onto the surface, you can actually see the impression of a thing called parvancorina. Now, it looks like somebody's signet ring.
It's like a trademark.
Exactly, yeah. And that's really all the fossil is. It's the impression of this soft-blooded creature as it was preserved instantly on the seafloor about 560 million years.
These are nothing like the fossils I'm used to. I mean, I would never, ever have spotted that.
Parvancorina wouldn't attract much attention today, but this animal had made a gigantic evolutionary leap. Unlike single-celled microbes, this was a complex creature with a head, skin, and internal organs.
Under here, we can see the imprint of quite a large creature,
Yeah.
at least the size of your hand. This is Dickinsonia, and it has got the finest segments that you can actually believe.
Oh yeah, just as
So
it
can you see that?
Yeah.
Once you get it at the right angle, you can actually see the details of these body segments.
There are about three there, there's another
There's
one
another
there.
there.
So it's like it was impressed there yesterday. Every little detail is preserved in this. It's beautiful.
Dickinsonia can grow to over a metre long. It's thought they lived on the seafloor, soaking up nutrients through their skin.
Here for the first time we've seen life that's become multi-celled, it's large. These are the creatures that gave rise to the life that we know today.
For around 50 million years, the Ediacarans lived in an ocean free of predators. Slowly, they evolved into more complex animals, but that came at a price.
These new animals now came equipped with rigid skeletons and shells, gripping claws and protective armour. The earth had changed from a soft, peaceful Garden of Eden into a savage world of predator and prey.
This intense competition now drove evolution at a frenetic pace. For more than 2 billion years, our world had been dominated by microbes. Now, complex, multi-celled life exploded into many new shapes and sizes. Emerging from the sea, animals and plants went on to conquer the land and the air. Volcanoes had ended the terrible time of snowball Earth, and in doing so led to a great evolutionary leap forward.
So what's interesting about this is they were talking about creatures that were going from the single cell to the multicellular, because that was a major evolutionary step. Creatures were originally a single cell, and then going from that single cell to a multicellular, and then going from ocean to land was another really big step. So, sorry, my mouse is acting up, which is not a good time for it to do that. But going from that single cell to multi-cell, and then going from ocean to land, those are big steps for those organisms to take. And those leaps make it more advanced, and each step up in the evolutionary tree is a major evolutionary advancement. Okay, so that's all the notes for today. You can continue to work on your SAMI paper, which hopefully you will have done in time to be turned in today by 4. Okay.